Hey, OGL 350. Welcome to Module 1. I kind of made a mistake. I thought I only had a video for the intro module, and that included Module 1, but I didn't, so according to the grade book. So we're going to do a Module 1 intro. I got to admit, a Module 1 video. I have to admit, this is like the softest start, the softest grand opening I've ever had to a semester. Um, that Thursday start day did not do anybody any favors because I had to, because we have to figure out a way to do weekly modules, and starting in the middle of the week, ending in the middle of the week just doesn't do it. So you want to end on a Sunday, typically, for students. So that's why there was kind of an intro module, and now we're going to get going in module 1. I really want to call that to your attention because the course isn't that easy, this easy. It isn't that easy, period. It's rather one of the most difficult courses I've taught. So it is a bit concerning to hopefully not give students the impression that, boy, this is, not too cool, because there's a lot coming, like a freight train. Okay. So, and a lot of academic rigor is going to be required. um, so weird. I swear to God, I don't know, whatever. Okay. So this module 1 is called Introduction to Diversity and Identity, right? And looking at it, uh, let me go through this way. Well, I guess the discussion board, that first one is kind of an introduction one, right? This is where it's kind of easier, just talking about yourself. And at the moment, we have 9 submitted out of 20. What do we got? 27 in the course now, or 26, I think, actually now. So I just don't want to. I don't want to get concerned yet, but because hopefully you're doing things in the background. I know you got lives to live and things like that. But I just caution you about pushing everything to the weekend, okay? Unless you plan on doing like 3 8-hour days or 2 8-hour days, and Friday 3 hours. Because remember, in a 300 level university class, it requires approximately 135 hours to complete it successfully. And you can do that, through Classroom, through whatever. But because it's online, and because it's not 15 weeks like normal, it's 7.5. You're talking about 18 hours a week. So be careful, because if you shortchange it, it's going to be reflected in these scores. Now, that's not to say that, well, if I put in 20 hours a week, I'll get an A. No, that doesn't work either. But of course, you know this, you're adults. So you understand university is not graded by the hour, it's graded by the score and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, the discussion board, fairly easy, right? I mean, you're going through a checklist of questions, right? You're doing an introduction to yourself. You've got these questions about your name and that. And I think, while I'm not thrilled with that, I think it does go towards our identity. Okay. Um, I have a name that's not a big fan. In fact, before 2000, I was Mike. East of the Mississippi, I am Mike, where I grew up. West of the Mississippi, and since 2000, I've been Michael. And it's just one of those changes that occurred. And so when I go back home to Milwaukee, everybody calls me Mike, and I let it go because that's what they call me. It's my identity back there. Here in Phoenix, and that somebody calls me Mike, or a student emails me and says, "Hey, Mike." I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Time out." uh, so isn't that something about our identity, right? As far as my last name, I mean, I'm Italian in every way except my last name. It's mispronounced, it's misspelled, it's by colleagues, by people, it is what it is. It's fair. Okay. So the name is part of your identity, and this is what we're asking questions about that, something interesting. And I hope you share something about yourself, where you live, what you're studying, your hobbies, etc. So it's easy to talk about yourself. I don't care what dating websites say about their profiles. It's so hard to talk about myself. No, it's not. Okay, so that's the discussion board. Now, the readings that we're going to get into here. They're they're intense, they're deep, they're detailed. Like I said, there's a lot of acronyms in this course. There's a lot of deep reading, a lot of thinking that you really got to try to find a quiet time to absorb it, or you'll find out you went through it and you really didn't comprehend anything because it's not your fault. It's just because you didn't have the attention that you needed to give it. So I cut these down, by the way. You had to choose like 2 or 3 readings and then add this and add that. And I said, this is absurd. It's way too much. This is not grad school. So we cut it down to choosing one of the readings in that section, and each one is pretty much equal. So if there's something that resonates with you more than something else, the first one's called How Leaders Can Become More Committed to Diversity Management. It's about 16 pages of a PDF, but there's also one page I added to it of GAO highlights. That's the Government Accounting Office to the U.S. recommendations to USAID in 2020. And it just goes about showing some of the ways that that gets manifested in real life in terms of how how an organization uh, can become more diverse and really and seeing it that way. The second option is rethinking diversity management and intersection analysis of diversity networks. That's 18 pages from 2020. Both of these are from 2020. I think all of them are. I tried to get rid of stuff that was older because, as I said, this topic, this field, it changes at light speed, almost on a daily basis, right? Um, before you wouldn't see like on Twitter people that are, showing their preferred pronouns in their handle or whatever, and now it's commonplace, et cetera, right? Um, so check that one out, or else there's diversity management and the post-diversity vision, an applied pragmatist approach. That's kind of out there looking at potentialities and such, and applied approaches. That's also 18 pages. So choose one of those three to read and really assimilate with and take notes on, and because you're going to use it later. Now, on top of that, in the identity section, I want you to read The Complexity of Identity. Who am I? And that's only a 4-pager. So everybody will have between 17 and 22 pages read here, okay? And you're going to use these later on in the upcoming paper, okay? So let's go with Easter egg number 1, and it's common sense, but let's just make you write it down because it'll mean something hopefully. But try not to procrastinate. Easter egg number 1 is try not to procrastinate. Okay, meaning that yes, I don't have any due dates like Monday through Wednesday, Monday through Thursday. At least I hope you're reading, taking notes, viewing the audio visual, taking notes, things like that. Okay, so be careful about making this a 2 to 3 day course a week. It's not going to work unless you really are going to sit there for 10, 12 hours on a weekend day, which let's face it, we're not. Okay. Um, and remember, I only accept late work 3 days late, and then it gets deducted 30%. After that, it's 0. Okay, so pace yourself accordingly, I guess I mean. So then you got the audio visual presentations. Now, this is a long one, this module 1. There's approximately 90 minutes of audio visuals to listen to. A lecture by Dr. Emily Mertz in our department. Pay particular close attention to lessons 3 to 5. Take notes, corresponding notes. You're going to have to reference a model and the concepts from 3 to 5 in your paper, and you're going to need it for your quiz. So I would suggest taking the quiz pretty quick after you get those done. So if you set aside 2.5 hours, you'll be able to get through these, take some notes, take a breath, get into the quiz, 30 questions, 60 minutes while it's fresh in your mind, and get done with that, okay? The quiz is due when? Wow, it was long. Audio visual. There's some good ones. I've listened to them. I'm going to listen to them again. The quiz is due on the 28th. That means it is due 4 days from now, which is a Friday, correct? No, it's Saturday. It's due Saturday. Discussion board is probably due sooner. Okay. And then, let's see, let's do Easter egg number 2. We're flying. Another one that I just kind of talked about here is set aside an appropriate amount of time. Okay, set aside an appropriate amount of time. That's the Easter egg, but you're doing that to be successful. Okay, this class is different, in my opinion, than classes that are more conceptual in nature. This is a course, I believe, that you, as someone in an organization or an entrepreneur, what have you, can consume the course information. Again, save the documents. You could save all those documents, even the ones you don't choose, save them. Because as you move through your career, you never know when these things are going to come in handy. You just never know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So it's good to have this, and setting aside an appropriate time to be successful, gets your money's worth from this, okay? Even if you've got Starbucks paying it off or Target or whomever, which is awesome, get your money's worth in your investment. All right, so let's take a look at the Module 1 paper. My videos used to be a lot funnier. I could really try some new material. Had a nice little stand-up thing going on here, and then I got slapped around in the reviews. No, the pandemic depressed the hell out of me, I'm telling you. I remember somebody said, "Oh, he's just so full of himself, traveling around the country and around Europe doing videos. He forgets about the course." I said, "No, I didn't forget about the course, and I did love traveling around, doing my teaching from Europe and around the U.S. and que sera, sera." Okay, Module 1 paper is, first of all, jumping around. It's 3 to 6 pages in length. First time I taught this first paper I looked at, hey, that's a yawn. I think I did 2 or 3 yesterday in my other video. Somebody turned in a 7.5 pager, and I rejected it. I just sent it back and told him he need to tighten it up. There's the 3 to 6 page guideline is important because, the 3-page minimum is what most people might need to push them to express themselves. Now, try not to be like my oldest son, who used to take such pride as he went to ASU Cronkite, and he would be in his room and he'd come out. He'd say, Dad, the paper was 1,000 words. I did 1,000 exactly. He was so proud of himself. No, that's not the point. But the point is to incentivize you to get to those 3 pages without being redundant, without stretching sentences along, without repeating yourself. It's really important that you think original thoughts, and that the 6 pages limit, however, is needed for some people. That would be probably like me and this other young man that I had in the other class, who just could continue to go on. We just they're just full of it. Let's just go type. And we need to be able to self-edit, self-monitor, self-regulate. So find your sweet spot in that 3 to 6. All right. It's got to be a Word doc only or docx. Okay. If you don't have it, get it. Talk to ASU Help Desk. It's free to everybody if you don't already have it. But it can only be submitted that way. It's the only thing. No cover page or abstract. Do not fancy this up in any way. I don't want to see it. Okay. Must be Times New Roman, 12-point font, double line spaced. That's important. With paragraph indents. Okay. This might be trouble for some people. So for other people, it's like, duh, right? But everybody fits in this continuum of where they feel comfortable in their writing skills. And for this university course, that's a literacy course that has to do with reading and writing. It's time to brush up on our skills, show off your skills, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, step up your game, right? So using paragraph index, just hit the tab once. Don't be inconsistent on your paragraph indents. Okay, don't leave big line gaps. You got 2 sections here, part 1, part 2. So yes, you can leave a line gap if you want, and then use a little bigger subheading font for that one. But it's Times New Roman 12-point font. If you want, you could do a running head and put your name up there in Module 1 paper, and you could do page number, what have you. in some way, maybe on a header, a footer, right? Um, but that's it. As long as your name's on it and such. Uh, Obviously, you have a spell check, grammar spell check. Please use it. Okay. Check for grammar and spelling errors. Word allows that. I'll see it right away if there's wrong spelling. I did get a horrible night of sleep. I was up from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock for some strange reason. All right. Clarity, well thought out, well written. Okay. But here's what we're going to do. Part one, I'm just doing these 50 points each. Part one is describe your reactions, perceptions, and significant insights from the readings. Okay. You're not going to just regurgitate or be a summary of what you read, but instead you should focus on these issues. What key things did you learn about diversity management? What key things did you learn about identity for you in general? Yes, I'm just reading this, what you're going to do, but I get to emphasize it. No, I'm just saying that um, just make sure you're not just doing a review of the paper as much as you're applying some of these things. And then part two is you're going to look at those audiovisual lessons 3 to 5 and discuss a concept. Okay, it's very self-explanatory here. But if you have questions, let me know for the instructions here. I'm not going to go through any which way, but you'll see what we're talking about here. And I think it's interesting and it allows you to apply things right away. All right, and to also consider how these models and how this academic side translates into the real life application organizations where you are, what you've seen from others. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where you gain access to tools and skills that should help you moving on. Be sure you have a grasp of plagiarism, okay, and how to avoid it. I have a link there. All papers go through the Turnitin plagiarism software, and they get checked. And you should see your score. It's a percentage, and the higher the percentage, the more my warning flags go up. Now, there's going to be some there because if you use quotations or what have you, you're going to have some. You're going to be citing things even when you paraphrase. You might be using just enough for that to be considered part of the percentage, as well as when you use it includes your citations and things like that. So make sure that when you're directly quoting that you use direct quotes. Okay, direct quotes are important. Make sure you know how to cite. APA formatting is what I'll be looking for. Whatever sources you use that are in your works cited list, they need to appear in text as in-text citations. Conversely, any in-text citation that you do must appear in your works cited list, which starts at the top of the first blank page after the writing. So if your writing goes into the first 3 lines of page 6, skip all the way down to the page 7 to do the works cited list. And that would be fine. I don't count the works cited list in the paper. Okay? The works cited list needs to be formatted in hanging paragraph format. This is tricky for some people. If you don't know what it is, don't guess. If you don't know what it is, Google it. If you don't know what it is, send me an email. It's not center justified, which means that everything is like written like, in the center. It's not left justified, right justified. It's a hanging paragraph. The top line goes to the margin, the subsequent lines tabbed in, and so on and so forth. There are no line gaps between entries. Okay. Hot link the links to your sources. By hot linking it, when you paste it, you hit enter and it gets hot linked. You should do that on every discussion board and things. Hot link it. That way I can go there and check it. For the paper itself, the citations, if you don't know how to cite in APA in text, go to the Purdue OWL site. I put that in your intro module. There's a page on formatting papers, and I talk about it there, and I have the link to click here for the APA style guide, giving you some information. I did not know anything about formatting until I was probably 53. Okay, so how did I learn? I dug into this site myself and I learned. I taught myself. Okay, you can do it. Trust me, you can do it. All right. That's how I learned at the age of 53. Okay. They taught an old dog new tricks. So you got this. And once you know it, you know it. It's like riding a bike, right? Once you know it, you know it. So keep that in mind that formatting is important. I will deduct. Even though, okay, I got worth 50 points and worth 50 points, but within those 50 points, I consider formatting. Okay. So if your whole paper is not formatted correctly, then you're going to get dinged, however points, 15 per section. I don't know. Now, do the best you can. I am not brutal on this. Like I said, you'll see I stumbled accidentally, and it really was almost accidentally. I kind of, it was like a car wreck. I couldn't look away. I went to rate my professor, and oh my God, did I get butchered. Um, the folks that think my formatting is so important that I forget about the course, that's hyperbole. The people that understood it, I'm like either like the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. It's like there's not a lot in between. And the difference is that the folks that hate my guts don't want to know about formatting, don't want it, don't think it's important, don't want to do it, don't want to learn it, and didn't. The ones that did it. Because guess what? Guess what? If people screwed up their formatting, I would let them redo it after I told them. Now that's a service you don't normally get. Okay. Now you don't send it to me first and I look at it. I'd never do that. But if you post it as your assignment, I look at it and say, okay, this isn't right. This person's going to get a 65, whatever, 60, 68, 70 even. But I'm going to say, here's what you did wrong. If you'd like an opportunity to resubmit it, send me an email. Why? Send me an email that you want to redo it. Why? Because then I know that you know. All right. I'm not going to wait around for it. We can set some additional parameters. This does not mean screw up your first paper and see where it lands, and if it's good enough, it's good enough. I'd like you to put an effort to it, but you'll get used to the way I do this thing because we have 6 modules and 6 papers, and I'm trying to give my students a benefit of the doubt. So the ones that rip me, say formatting is it sucks. He worries more about that than content. No, no, it's not. But I'll tell you what, if the formatting is not there and the paper looks like you took a pile of words, you typed them out, and then you said, throw them on the page, and now you look through it and figure it out. Okay? If you're reading this book here and, there's not paragraphs, there's not little formatting help. I mean, it's rough enough, and I'm reading because I want to. But if you just give somebody slop, it's not going to be good, And I use the analogy of driving up to a house, you're house shopping, and you look out and you drive up to the curb, and it's like the grass hasn't been cut, paint's peeling off, bushes are overgrown, can't see the front door. You're like, out of here. Little did you know that the interior was immaculate, the foundation is fabulous, and the content was wonderful. But you couldn't even do it because the presentation of it was horrible. Conversely, presentation could be great, and you go in and you're like, okay, let's go in. You're like, okay, I mean, it needs some work here. We can redo this, we can do that. The key there is you got in. The presentation was good enough. It has you in there, has you being a little more forgiving and looking at reasons that how it could improve. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. But otherwise, let's see. I think that should be it for the first paper. Let's see, double check that. 2 parts again. The second part, I got that. I got that. So we're at 24. I thought we were going to get done really fast. I'm sorry, I dragged you out. My fault. Okay, Easter egg number 3 is formatting counts. All right, formatting counts. Really sorry to take you this long. I'll make it up to you somehow. No, I won't. Forks up. Peace.